Okay, so hi, hello, welcome back to another reading bad two-sentence horror stories. Before we get into it, I do want to say a few things. First off, this video is a one take, by the way. So, if you do hear me stumble, mumble, fumble, and mess up my words, I am sorry. This video, as previously mentioned, is one take. And second thing, please consider using code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. It is code GOONS. Gamersubs is pretty much like Kool-Aid for like adults. It's the same premise of you take the powder, put it in water, shake it up, and you got a caffeinated or a non-caffeinated drink. It's pretty good. So if you're interested, go check it out. Okay, so outside of code GOONS and all that stuff, and all my links are down below. Let's get into it. So, bad two-sentence horror stories. How I usually do these is that I go from the top to either if I remember where I left off last time, or I stop when I get when it gets really cringeworthy. Because sometimes the two-sentence horror stories are pretty bad. So, yeah, let's get into it. Let me get this ready real quick. Alright, let's get into it. Already starting off with a good one. I invented a time machine so I can go back in time to change my husband's mind about suicide. And when I arrived back in the present, I smiled while reading his obituary, knowing he wouldn't live on to kill all those innocent people. Told you we're starting out pretty heavy. Alright, moving on. I thought that since I was pregnant, now my husband wouldn't lay his hands on me anymore. I was relieved until I found a notebook detailing every failure I made, beginning the day I told him I was expecting. I mean, that is a horror story. Moving on. My wife finally accepted that kids aren't in the cards for us after her 5th miscarriage. Finally, it was getting tiring constantly sneaking bleach into her coffee. That is also a horror story. Moving on. I'm sorry, but the baby killed your wife during childbirth, the doctor told me. I stood up in the hospital bed and looked down at my wife's body on the floor, and then back to the baby I just pushed out of my vagina, its eyes glowing red. Okay, so that was honestly subject of aversion, I think that's what it said. I did not expect that to happen. Okay. I think that was a decent one. It's kind of stupid, but it's kind of funny. Moving on. Is that the venomous one? He asked, clutching his bite. Don't worry, red and yellow, and he's your fellow. Okay, that one sucked. Moving on. Finally, I exclaimed. After 2 long years, my masterpiece is almost complete. It just needs a little bit of red, I thought, standing in front of the canvas with my loaded gun. Okay, that is a horror story. I think that one's actually kind of decent. It's morbid, but I think it's kind of decent. Moving on. I got a call from the principal of my son's school about my son throwing another temper tantrum. Although he killed himself in the school years ago, I still get calls to come and calm him down when he starts flipping tables and chairs. Okay, that one's just kind of sad. Moving on. Per your policy, I'd like to get a free replacement for my wife who ran away after only 11 months. Upon confirmation, I cut her loose, lifted her chin with the knife, and said, "Start running." Huh. Okay, moving on. The 23-year-old bride greedily plotted as she kissed her new 75-year-old wealthy husband, unaware that his last 10 young wives all died of natural causes. And that's in quotations. Moving on. After my encouragement, my online friend told me that she will stand up to her husband. That was 6 months ago, and she hasn't been online since then. That is just messed up. We're moving on. I stuffed a pencil up my nose and went to find my girlfriend, knowing that knowing that it will gross her out. I tripped. That one is also a heavy hitter, because that was a fear of mine back in like elementary school. Moving on. You aren't born with a fear of the dark, but most people forget how they got it. I can't. Is that true? I mean, I don't like the dark because like people can just hide in the dark. Like my biggest fear is people. So I don't know. Moving on. Mommy, baby Jack can swim all by himself. My 4-year-old exclaimed, beaming with pride. He float with his face down, she added, pointing to the pool. Okay, moving on. So nice to enjoy a nap at the beach while he's watching our son, she thought. So nice to enjoy a nap at our beach while she's watching our son, he thought. Okay, so this person didn't know the format of the 2-sentence horror and just decided to copy and paste the same thing twice. Hey, more power to him. Moving on. As we dissect the alien corpse, we marveled at how different yet familiar his body was. What does NASA mean? My colleague asked, examining the faded emblem on the alien's primitive spacesuit. Honestly though, I'm not gonna lie. That probably would be a cool like horror story. Moving on. Look what I can do. He sang to the baby, rhythmically, I can't say that word. Rhythmically snapping his fingers. When he ran out of fingers to snap, he moved on to the boy's wrist. Okay, moving on. When we sit near the fireplace in our family mansion, my grandchildren often ask me how did I manage to escape Unit 731 during World War II. I is sure to tell them a story, but I think it's not necessary for them to know that I was not a patient, but rather a doctor. Okay, that's layered. Moving on. To escape my death sentence, I made a clone of myself with exact likeness and identical memories. As the execution draws near, I'm no longer sure which one of us is the real me. Okay, honestly, I think at that point, that's it's a natural selection. If you don't know that, that's a clone you made. Moving on. I was happily eating a BLT sandwich. My happiness turned to horror when I realized it stood for blood, lettuce, and tongue. That was that's a heavy hitter. Moving on. The kidnapper promised that if I involved the media or the cops, he would kill my daughter in a painful manner. I called the cops and gave interviews to multiple reporters, but that cowardly kidnapper broke his promise and I left my daughter in a park. Okay, that's messed up. The guy wanted the kidnapper to kill his daughter. That's messed up. Moving on. It's not uncommon to wake up with a witch sitting on your chest when you have sleep paralysis. It is uncommon to wake up and see a witch sitting on your wife's chest when she has sleep paralysis. Okay, moving on. I want to ask Sarah what Pastor Stevens talked to her about, but she's been locked up in her room playing Tetris for like hours now. I didn't think she even liked Tetris. Okay, moving on. For honor, cried the warrior, lifting his blade high. It took several swings to saw through his 13-year-old daughter's throat, but he had no choice after her husband saw her talking to another boy. Okay, moving on. I want to enroll my 9-year-old in pre-ballet classes, but she refuses to learn ballet, I said with frustration. Don't worry, the new technology, we can change her preferences and she won't even notice. the doctor said with a smile. Okay, moving on. I know your deal, I told the genie, and I'm not making any wishes. Are you sure you never will? The genie asked, as it slowly turned invisible, because a few decades of listening is nothing for me. I mean, that could be scary. Honestly, I feel like that could be like the plot to like if Aladdin ever becomes like public domain. You know those guys who make like the Winnie Pooh movies? It's probably gonna hop on that and probably take that as a plot. I don't know, a little dumb thought. But we're moving on. As a good parent, I had never lied to my children. So when they asked me whether they could see me if they killed themselves, I moved the planchette and answered, yes. Huh, okay. Moving on. I was collecting eggs during the egg hunt when my guardian angel appeared in a flash. Put it back without touching the pin and leave it for the other kids, she said, pointing at the strange egg I had just picked up. Huh. That... I can only imagine a Easter horror movie now involving this plot. I mean, I watch it. But we're moving on. I'm so sorry, my wife cries, hysterically to the judge. If my sister hadn't lied about having an affair with my husband, I would have never chopped his genitals off. Banger. Moving on. I'll never forget the day my wife and I played Russian roulette. We had sex later, even though she lost. Okay, moving on. Hey Stacy, I'm going on a date tonight. He's really sweet and cool, and his name was Jeffrey. Is that supposed to be like a reference to Jeffrey Dahmer? Huh. When my little sister clawed at her throat and gasped for breath, I started Googling frenetically. She still persisted after I shoved the Wikipedia page in her face and said, "It says here that peanuts aren't nuts, they are legumes." Huh. Okay, moving on. At school last week, I shoved that nerdy kid into a locker. They found him this morning because the hallway was starting to smell. Okay, that's actually messed up. I found my son crying after he buried his dog. Next time before he disrespected me, remember that you had 2 more pets, I said as I walked away. Do you like how that feels? The gynecologist said. That's messed up. You're wrong for that. Moving on. My boss, knowing I intended to kill him, blurted out, "I know this is poison. I can smell the almonds." I regarded him with confusion as I pulled out a fucking gun. Banger. Moving on. I noticed a tiny piece of corn stuck between my 9-month-old son's teeth, so I carefully plucked it out. And that's when I learned what an exposed nerve looks like. Oof. That's rough. Moving on. I couldn't believe the man who had I'm not gonna read that one. That was really messed up. Okay, hold on. My doctor refused to give me any medication and blamed me for feeling dead inside of my pregnancy. As soon as I felt the smell of the rotting fetus I had just birthed, I realized his diagnosis was right. Huh, okay. I found this old picture of me hugging my wife and kids. The only problem is, I never got married. The first EMT said, he's got the right blood type, and he's listed as an organ donor worth a shot. The second nodded grimly and replied, "For my little girl, absolutely. But we had to make sure it looked like we tried." Okay, that one is kind of dark, but hey, moving on. It was so challenging for me to tell my best friend how awful she was every day for 3 years. But now, as I tuck my new toddlers into their beds, I know what I did was right. Okay, I understand what they're putting down. We're moving on. I touched my picture on the wall that showed the family gathered around a golden retriever. After a quick glance at the bodies of the family members I had just killed, I began searching for the still hiding golden retriever. Okay, moving on. Mom said it was my turn to lick the bowl. I sighed and marched myself to the toilet. Okay. Do 2 more, and then that'll be it for the video. I thank God that I never saw Bloody Mary as a teen after foolishly chanting in the mirror. Ugly lady, my baby blurted out. My baby blurted out while I was bathing him in the tub, and he pointed past me, causing all the blood to drain from his 35-year-old mom's face. Okay, and this is the last one of the video. I decided to leave my husband and convinced everyone in our friend group to ghost him. We left him in his hibernation pod and took the shuttle to the last known colony as the ship traveled towards the unknown. Okay, I think that was a good one to end off on. But yeah, I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching the video. It really means a lot to me that you are here watching this one. And yeah, so I don't have anything else to say. All my links are down below if you want to find me anywhere else. And remember to use code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. So outside of that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye everyone.